Welcome to Season 2 of Strengths on Fire, the Great Strengths Debate.
Think you know CliftonStrengths? Think again.
This season, we're breaking down the biggest myths
Challenging conventional wisdom.
and showing you how strengths actually show up in leadership, life, and the messy middle of real work.
Sarah, you want to light these strengths on fire?
Let's light it up! Mr. Bill Dippel, welcome back to Season 2, Episode 2.
Let's jump on in. I love Season 2 already. It's a little on fire, a little more edgy, a little ready to go. I'm all in.
Let's keep the edginess going. Here's my question for you. What's a bold opinion you hold about professional development right now?
Ooh, a bold opinion about professional development. I think so. I do a lot of coaching and use other coaching philosophies. So we've already hit on Mel Robbins Season 2, but we brought her up early on. I know my primal question. I know, obviously, I know Myers-Briggs, DISC, Colby. I think all of those are, yeah. And we're very honest with our clients when we say, hey, I'm not picky what you're using. I want you to be moving forward, and I'll help you with all of these because some of those do cross over pretty easily in the strength. Some don't. But I think for me, the thing that I would point out about self-improvement and development from a coaching aspect is how often I have to work around bad coaches.
Oh, you took that in a different direction than I thought you were going to. Say more.
So frequently someone will come to me and say, we need you so bad. And let's say it's a VP or this, and we would love to work with you. And I attended that seminar you did, and that made total sense. And they'll go to their boss, and the boss will say, done it. And it meant nothing. It didn't work, and we got nothing out of it. Or the CEO will say we're doing it, and two of the VPs came from another company where coaches would start the process, and they would just maybe do a one-day, hey, and then forget about it. Or maybe they started the process, but they didn't. I don't want to throw the coaching community under the bus, but I do believe there are some coaches. Yeah, I am. But I think there are some coaches that hey, I'll just, whatever the money is, if it's this, if it's that. And we're always really open and honest with our coaching group.
There's a kitty cat playing with your camera.
There's a cat playing in the back with my camera. Not anymore. So don't worry. I'll get them moving. I promise. So I will often, when I'm working with a group, I will be like, hey, I may not be the coach for you. If you're asking for a one-off event and you think I'll do a one-off event by all means. If that's what you want and these are the outcomes,
right?
We can do that. However, if what you're saying is I need you to come in and do a one-day event and I need you to solve 4 big issues that we have with our employees, I'm not your coach. And let's be really honest about why that is and what that means. And so I from as somebody that's been in the business now for a number of years, I often have to reopen that door. But when I get approached by that VP or that boss or that employee and they're trying to open it, quite often I will tell them, that's okay. It makes my job easier. It actually makes my job easier because when you experience coaching that does make a difference for you, that really opens that door and makes that a little bit better for you. And and in total openness, sometimes I'm not that coach either. Even if we have the right set and direction, it's possible that I could be the coach that didn't make the difference for certain teams and certain groups, and I don't want to leave that legacy for other coaches. So I'll attempt to make the biggest difference I can and make sure we step in.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. An actual bold opinion.
Easy, bold. I was told I should be a lawyer in a previous life, but then, with this voice, podcasting, no.
That's right. You are where you're meant to be.
Clearly.
Absolutely agree.
So
I thought you were going to go somewhere else with that question. And I was like, oh my God, we are going to say the exact same thing. And I was sort of feeling a little
Oh,
pissed because I was like, damn it. How are we saying the same thing? But you took it a different place than I thought you were going to. I would
awesome.
say my bold opinion is I love assessments, right? Like I always make the joke that I'm an Enneagram 3 and I'm a Hufflepuff. Thank you, BuzzFeed. If you give me an assessment, I will take it. Um, but I, and of course, in my coaching practice, I only use CliftonStrengths.
Hmm.
And my bold opinion is companies, organizations need to pick an assessment and stick to it and stop wiggling around with assessments.
Yeah.
And I mean this in the nicest way. Let me explain. Obviously, I love CliftonStrengths. I want you to pick that one. But if you don't, if you pick DISC or Working Genius or Enneagram or MBTI or whatever it is, you need to invest years of your people's time into it because these assessments are deep. There's a lot to learn. They're all going to introduce you to a new language. And if you want your people to use it and not just be a, oh, this fun thing we did at our quarterly retreat or our annual retreat, if you want it to actually impact the people, you need to spend actual time on the same assessment so people have time to learn it, to understand it, and to use it. In CliftonStrengths, we call it name, claim, aim. But you have to spend the time if you want it to work. I know so many companies and teams that are like, yes, we're doing CliftonStrengths, but last year we did the Working Genius, and the year before that we did the Enneagram, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like that is whiplashing your people. Your people
Yeah.
are not going to take these assessments seriously. Yes, someone, like Janet may really grab on to Enneagram, and George may really grab onto the Working Genius, but then they're not speaking the same language.
Yeah.
We need the same language. We need to be invested. You need to show your people are taking this seriously. If you're just doing assessments all the time because they're fun, you're going to have fun, but you are not going to get actual impact and outcomes. So if you
Absolutely.
want to see these things work, pick one and stick with it for years. And then if you want to move on, move on. But this
Yeah.
hopping around from assessments, you're just spending money and wasting time.
Yeah. Boom. There it is. And
Oh,
I completely agree with you. I
oh,
know
I
it.
hear a but.
Well, it may sound like I said, hey, I don't care which one you use as long as you're moving forward and, uh, use them all. You may look at that as the opposite of what you said. But what my point in that, if I was to expand on it, I think reflects what you're saying pretty obviously, which is, yes, I would prefer you use the science behind Gallup. Yes, as certified coaches, we know that system so well. That's the one we'll be able to help you with the most. And there is crossover on some where I will work with DISC people and I will work with
Mm-hmm.
Colby people, and we will look at what those differences make. But if you want to stick with those and that's where you're staying, again, I am not probably the coach for you unless you want to make that transition. And to echo exactly what you just said, I always start my engagements with companies that have a definitive want to move forward with a 3-year plan. It
Yeah.
is for me, all just look at this as a 3-year commitment. How do we step into it? What are the steps? I have a whole roadmap document to show where you're getting on and where you're getting off. And let's talk about what that looks like, what we can accomplish in those timelines, and what you're getting for that time and commitment. And so, again, it sounded like we might be saying a little different, but I think when you dive into it, we're exactly onto the same page. I just added the wrinkle of I got to climb the hill of a cash based in and out coach. And
Yeah.
even me, when I started up, I may have had some events that I took for the money and wasn't worried about the outcomes. And so, I'm as guilty as anyone else. I'm not pointing fingers, but getting to a point and a level and then being able to move past it, I think that's one of the things I do battle against. So,
Yeah. Okay, well, today we are here to discuss another debate question. And our
okay.
debate question that we're discussing today, Bill, is if strengths are so powerful, why do so many teams still struggle?
No, and do they?
Ooh. And do
Right?
they? Right?
Yeah. Well, I think we can knock that one down pretty easily. And do they? Absolutely. And in working through strengths and teams, I would say again, if we're not sticking to the committed timelines, if we're not investing and regularly pushing forward what we're trying to bring as a strengths-based culture to a team, we're going to see slip. We're going to see some step back. Now, again, at the end of that 3-year commitment, if I've got strengths ambassadors and strengths aware managers, maybe that tune up from us is quarterly or every 6 months, or it could be even longer than that, just to come in and work with some new people, give the ambassadors some work and time. And we're still supporting them in that timeline via calls and Zoom. But absolutely, once we start working with them, particularly in that first year, I think from my coaching experience, we definitely see some bumpy rides, right?
Mm-hmm.
We definitely see some people that, and I would say from my point of view, one of the things I experience, I know other coaches experience it. You're not going to tell me you haven't experienced this, Sarah, but that is in a known team of, let's just say 10, the one or the 1.5, 2 people that absolutely refuse to do this.
It can be. There definitely are some that have very low buy-in, and
Yes.
sometimes they never show up. I worked with an organization where, when I was working with the whole organization, 50 plus people, there were a couple people I never saw once.
Yeah.
And they were high enough ranking that everybody just let it be and okay. And we had enough of the leadership and the top that we were still able to make a huge impact with everyone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were some people that to this day I couldn't tell you what they looked like.
Yeah. And I respect your I guess apprehension, and I respect you by saying I will not do that. I'm just telling you I'm not going to do it. For our program and the way we coach, it's easy enough to exclude people that will absolutely not do this, because the uphill climb to get them to move to the next level isn't worth the time for us
Yeah.
or them, right?
Yeah.
I'm not being cruel about our time isn't worth it,
Right.
but if they get there eventually, they're still going to be apprehensive about some of the things that we do. And we've just spent a ton of time just getting them to stage 1, where we could have got the other 8, 9 people in that group all the way through ambassadorship and knowing how to talk strengths and building dynamic partnerships and building and working towards that. I would say that's certainly one thing that we need to, as coaches, be very cognizant of, is how do we deal with the one-offs? And they aren't that frequent, right? They
Right.
really aren't. But they do crop up. And similar to what you said, I recently just started reworking with a fairly large company here in Reno. And I sat down with management and I said, when they called me back in and said, let's talk about moving forward now. And I said, if you're not going to stick with this, or if we're going to start and stop again because we had done that once, just stop and save your
Mm-hmm.
money. Don't
Yeah.
do it until you're absolutely ready to keep doing it.
Right.
And then when you're ready for that, call me back, or
Mm-hmm.
I can recommend other coaches. But let me know when that time comes, because if we're gonna show all of the employees that we don't take it serious enough to stick with it, all you've done is made my job and your job much harder to roll this out.
Mm-hmm. I will say, when I am in a session and the people show up that are apprehensive, and I have, in fact, had someone once, a older gentleman, look at me right at the beginning before I even got started and said, well, this isn't the type of thing I'm into, but I was told I have to be here.
Right.
And it did make me shake in my boots a little bit, but my woo totally comes out to play. I am like, oh, I have my sights set on you, sweetie, and we are gonna go for a ride. And I
Yeah.
am happy to say that I have converted some people who were very apprehensive, maybe even a little combative about having me
Yeah.
to do this.
Yeah.
And we actually, in one organization, someone who did not want to be there, thought it was a waste of time, They invested over years, and I kept showing up, I kept investing, and he ended up being one of the ambassadors. And it was mine and the leaders, one of our greatest wins
Yeah.
was to take someone who was so just apprehensive and just honestly kind of a curmudgeon about it
Yeah.
and
Couldn't.
make them one of our ambassadors, make
Yeah.
them one of the people screaming it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
So, but it took that like time and dedication.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. I mentioned it on the first episode, season 2, but we've converted some people that were definite naysayers early on, and so many of them, and I would say almost a good portion of them have become ambassadors or the embedded coach reach out, right, that wants to, because once they start using it and understand why it means what it does and how to step into it, it works so well that they, oh, okay, I get this part of it. Every now and then, somebody just will never make that pivot. I get that. So I was in a, I was in a, I was in another country doing a company that I was working with for a while, and I was going over the 4 needs of followers regarding Gallup and CliftonStrengths and where they got there. And I used I highlighted the 4 needs, and one of them was hope. And one of the guys twisted his face up, is sitting at one of the tables, and it was about 30 people in the room. And I looked at him. I said, "So I noticed you winced at the word hope. Why would that?" Right? Because I think also for us as coaches, if we try to avoid when we know something isn't agreeable, that will fester into a big problem.
Right.
Whereas good coaches will lean into it to say, let's talk about it. I may not get you there, right? But I might learn something more about it. And furthermore, hopefully I will get you to that next step. I don't know that I did in this case, but we tried hard. And what the lesson here was, he was on a nuclear submarine as part of his youth, and was traveling the seas for the Navy in a nuclear submarine. And he said, hope is one of the words we are not allowed to use. There is no hope on a nuclear submarine. It will work, and it will happen, or it won't. We don't hope anything happens. And I said,
That is so depressing.
well, I mean, it's a pretty fair point, right?
Sure, sure.
But I did say, how would you get 200 sailors on a submarine with no hope of returning, right? There has to be some form of hope.
And if you
right?
thought like this, there's no way that this is going to work, right? Which would be no hope. No one's getting on. You're absolutely right. There has to be a beacon of hope there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And those sailors are followers of the command structure and the group. And if you told them there's no hope you're returning from this deployment, good luck. Good luck getting them on.
Right.
And there was some hemming and hawing, and we had a discussion over it. Some of the other people in the room highlighted some other hope ideals around the Navy. So there was a moment, but again, talking about teams, as coaches, we have to be aware of when there might be a little ruffling of the feather, and where we can lean into that rather than step away from it.
yeah. And I think for teams that do struggle when they have been introduced to strengths, if you've got a few of these folks that are holdouts, you can still have success. We don't have to have everyone 100% on board, right? It would be nice. We just have to make sure that those holdouts are not becoming cancerous to this and really trying to sabotage or constantly playing devil's advocate about everything, because I think that
Right.
can sour the pot of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing I would say, based on you brought up the 4 needs of followers, I would say strengths are not a silver bullet. Like, strengths are how we do things, right? They are great reflection tools to why am I the way I am, and how do I do things best, and how are my teammates and my managers and the people I'm managing, how are we working best? Strengths are the
Yeah.
how, not the what.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other things teams need. And I don't mean, obviously, I just said like not more assessments. I just mean there are other tools out there, right? Like a manager needs to learn how to manage, right? And there are just how do we give feedback? How do we work together? How do we work with someone who's a low performer? There's a lot of other things that teams need to be successful. Strengths is a great lens to be able to incorporate with a lot of those things. So like when I'm talking to a manager, I've got other tricks and thoughts and coaching up my sleeve for them, but I love using strengths as a foundation to think about what we're doing. So
Yeah.
I'm always saying, I'm going to coach you on whatever it is you need, right? I have some independent coaching clients and we are just on a coaching journey for their professional development.
Yep.
But I use strengths as the foundation so we can always come back to it. Personally, I love the positive psychology behind it. I love the abundance mindset. I love the thinking of what we do have as opposed to what we don't have. But we've got to build other tools upon that.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. And I think I would ask you the question too, if we're talking about teams and why they might struggle. The thought that came to my mind, and I'm going to pose it as a question instead of just leaping into it, is this stuff is hard. Right. I mean, it isn't. So how do you find getting over the hard part of doing this? Because when you and I talk about it, we mention enthusiasts and hope that they're enough germinated to follow along and make sure we're hitting the themes and doing what we do. In season 1, we did a great job of exploring those and breaking them down in a subtler way. But now we're diving into them pretty deeply. And admittedly, this is hard. How do you embrace that with a team?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think acknowledging that it is a lot. There are 34 words, and each word you could write an entire book about each of the themes, you know? And so it is a lot. I actually recently coached, I have a team I've been coaching. We're going on year 3 now, and they are so strengths aware and they have really gone through it. We've done all sorts of stuff. They use it all the time. And they have someone on there like tangentially on their team. She is, but she's not. And they want to bring her in to some of the work that we're doing. And so I met with her to do a one-on-one. She had taken strengths before, but had never really been coached on it. And as we're discussing it, she is telling me, I'm like a little intimidated because this team is so strengths aware. They bring it up in every meeting and I'm lost. I don't understand what they're doing. I feel so far behind. So that is like it really highlights what you're saying about this is hard because there's a lot there.
Yeah.
And my philosophy on a lot of this is just do the next right thing, right? What's the next right thing you can do? I think the easiest point to start is learning about yourself. We are all so self-involved. We love ourselves so much, right? How does this matter to me? So learn about yourself. Use it as a tool to learn about yourself. So you're going to get familiar with 10 strengths. You're going to know those. And then start to add in the other people, right? I do one-off workshops, of course, and sometimes people are like, okay, in the 2 hours, we want to learn about all of ourselves and our partnerships and our teams. And I'm like, oh my God, like we cannot do that in 2 hours. Ideally, we want months, years of time, so we can take the time to allow people to really understand themselves, because then it's easier to learn about your team. It just does take time. It is, you don't have to be a master of this, and there's a lot of tools you can use to help you. So Bill and I live and breathe this, so we have it memorized. But there are books, there are websites, there are podcasts, there are resources that you're going to get from a coach. You can use those as shortcuts, you know? And so it's like, use the tools and resources you have for in those moments where you don't have everything memorized. And also go into conversations with curiosity. It is hard, but if you're meeting with someone and they have strengths that you don't have and you don't understand how they work, ask them, how does that analytical activator show up for you? What does that look like? How does it come out to play? That's what us coaches are doing anyways, because I don't know how it shows up for someone. I know a little bit about the strengths, but I don't know how it's going to look for you. So it's like, do the next right thing, focus on learning about yourself first, and be curious. Just be curious. Use those resources you have and be curious and ask questions. What would you say, Bill?
Love the curiosity end of it. We're always trying to promote that when we're working with teams. As you said, so often we are asking people to, hey, go talk to your coworkers that have this. One point that we bring up every seminar, no matter how frequently we put it together, is individualization is not individualization is not individualization. Context is not context is not context. And we highlight that in every seminar we do by showing and actually having two people in the room that have the same theme in the top five read their results out loud from a part of their report. And we do that because not everybody, I would say most people don't realize that when you see woo number 3 and the person across the room has woo number 2 or let's say number 3 as well, your write-up is exactly the same. It's going to say the same thing about both of you because most people will, I mean, it seems like a fairly obvious thought process, will think that the write-up is canned. You're saying this is who I am at this level, so it's going to be the same write-up for all of us. And as you and I know, and all of the Gallup coaches know, and hopefully most people are teaching around this, it isn't. The write-up is absolutely and completely different for both of you. The odds on you having even one of the same parts of the write-up is pretty small, depending on all of the other themes in the top 10. And that curiosity when you're asking, go ask somebody, how does context work for you? Because here's how it works for me. You're going to hear differences from that person saying, well, even in my write-up, it says I do this, 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 which is absolutely correct. Oh, I don't use context in that way. I don't use it for other people. I'm purely situational. I don't use it for my relationships. I use it in my job only, or however I feel I use it in that way. And the report is brilliant about pointing out how the interplay between the different themes play within that top 10 and how they affect each other.
Absolutely. And I think that is one of the key things that people can use as a resource when they are feeling like, whew, this is a lot. It is. It is a
Yeah.
lot, but
It's
you have tailored resources at your
yeah.
fingertips.
Yeah. And the other part about this stuff is hard is, again, I know it sounds a bit self-serving, but partner with a good coach.
Right.
Partner with somebody that can. I'm on call for many of my clients that within a reasonable timeline, I will get right back. I had one call me this week talking about I would say a tricky moment with two other employees that may have jumped out of their lane a little bit. And we pulled up their reports. We looked at their assessments. We talked about why that and context was at play in that particular instance. So we talked about what that looked like, why that was important for that person, how we might approach a discussion to say that needs to be addressed. So let's talk about what your strengths are and how that might play out a little better in the future. So partnering with somebody that has the ability to distinguish that, to be on call, to be able to talk about it, and then strengthening your ambassadorship or the managers as coaches within your walls goes a long way to solving those right at the gate, and you don't have to worry about calling in an outside influence to do that. But until you get there, have someone like Sarah. I would call Sarah, and I have called Sarah for coaching questions around, hey, I'm dealing with this client. What do you think? How might you approach this? Because we will come at it from a different thought process.
Yeah. Talk to the audience about ambassador. You talk about embedded coaches, ambassadors. If people listening don't know, what does that mean? What does that look like? Talk about what that is in your world and why it can help when teams are struggling or help them not to struggle.
Yeah, I think the ambassadorship is different for all coaches depending on how it comes out, but the concept is kind of the same regarding how we empower that. So for our larger coaching clients in particular, it can be with a small group too with one ambassador, but what that would look like is when we have 150 client group, we're coming in on a fairly regular basis, working with their new people and also working with management. How do we work on that stuff that is hard, but we can't, depending on obviously how embedded we are with them, we can't deal with 200 people monthly and start there. Also, we want to keep the fire burning with those other groups within within that. So one of our programs that we run people through is a strengths ambassadorship within those walls, where let's say for 200 people, let's get 4 of your people that are really into this, that really want to step up and do more about this. And let's get them some added tools. Let's get them direct access to us and our coaching team. And let's let them do some of the strengths discovery. Let's let them sit in with us and watch how that happens. And when those people are being reached out or those companies are trying to step forward, the ambassadorship can take some of those duties. And if they run into a sticky spot, we're on call directly with them for instant access. They know who they can reach with and deal with that. But those ambassadors are also spending a lot of time. Hey, we're having a whole corporate retreat. So the ambassadors will come up with ideas around how do we involve strengths in this retreat? What's the action, the guide, the play time that we're going to do, and they'll run it by us. We'll give them some other ideas, right? So now we're empowering some people at the company to be even better coaches. We're empowering them to know more and more about strengths, with the ultimate goal being hopefully they want to become coaches on their own, as we would hope most management would, at least at maybe not fully certified, but at some point taking it on and moving into that coaching role. And the ability of having some people in-house, and for a smaller team, it could be just one, that can handle that is a really powerful way to not only keep strengths moving when we can't necessarily be there frequently, but also to empower team members and leaders that want to step into that role and make it happen. And I would also say it doesn't have to lead towards let's say, full certification, but it has. I actually lost a wonderful client in Reno because they sent 4 of their people to go because they loved what we did. And I consider that the ultimate thank you and the pat on the back for, we love what you do so much. We're going to invest a ton of money to send our people off to go get certified and work in this, so that our reliance is really built specifically in-house.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I love about the ambassadors within an organization are they know your organization as well. Everything Bill said, plus they know it. So like when I was at Remble Ludke, which is a law firm here in Lincoln, we did ambassadors there. And I don't know anything about lawyers, let's be honest. Like, who am I, right? Like, but the ambassadors did. So I had come in and done tons of strength stuffs and then additional training with our ambassadors. But they get to be there, boots on the ground. They're there every day. They're pushing the mission of strengths forward. And they know the lawyers. They know the legal aides and assistants, right? They know it. And so they really understand how it's going to show up and work. And they can be in there infusing it, which I think is really cool. And I'll say Alex Phillips is one of my greatest success stories. She was at Remble Ludke, became one of those ambassadors, ended up getting certified. Stole my job.
Stole it.
The greatest thing that we can have happen, she took over because they wanted to do it so much they gave her that role and was doing it internally. And one of the coolest things now is she's actually moved on to a different organization. She's still an embedded coach there. And she is collaborating with me, right? She's still working with me. She's putting on a big event for 200 people later this summer, and I'm going to co-facilitate it with her. I've never been more proud in my whole life. Like, that just feels like the pinnacle of it.
Yeah.
Because, she's still together. We actually have come up with one of the coolest activities. I can't reveal it here because I want everyone who's going to be there to be surprised by it. But together, our heads together, thinking she knows the company, I know strengths so well, she knows strengths, I facilitate so much, coming together to think about what can we do that would be really powerful, impactful. We came up with the coolest idea. The way she has executed it is literally phenomenal. And that's what makes it really fun.
Yeah. Having a partner that knows the company so well, it's a great spin. I wasn't thinking of how the ambassadors know the company, but as you mentioned it, several of the ambassadorships that we run, and I actually have a coach that just does our ambassadorships. So when we have ambassadors that are running, she's communicating. She's always working with them. And if she needs more from me, we jump in it. But how often we're working with the ambassadors, getting feedback around, hey, the next time you're coming on site, this is what we need to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Or management in these areas feel this might be a huge opportunity for our next steps. So what might that look like and how can I help? I mean, can there be any greater way to come in and be ready to work with a client than knowing from the inside, from somebody that knows the business so well, what it is that we're going to step into? It's
Yeah.
phenomenal. Agreed? Yeah,
Okay, I totally agree. I want to ask you a devil's advocate question.
I'm ready.
What if someone were to say, does being strengths aware make people too self focused, self involved, and
Mm.
less team oriented?
Mm. That's wow. I don't know that I've ever quite got that question that way. And I would say that probably leads to the way that we developed our strengths discovery sessions for the teams and our consistent engagement, part of the roadmap document that I hit on, because we will work with individual strengths frequently and a C-suiter or a manager where we have defined that's going to really help them. But the emphasis for us is always on how can you coach better and work with other people better. So I don't know that I've got that question a lot. I guess I would have to approach it with exactly that refrain coming back at it, which is, look, you knowing your strengths and how you use them and how you step into them, mission critical. It's fantastic and it's incredibly powerful. But it's half as powerful as understanding the strengths and utilizing those of the people around you.
Yeah.
So that might be the only way I might approach that. And if they're still going to say, nope, it's just, I'm going to do it my way, and just know my strengths and step in and out, then I guess it's a coaching opportunity to help them see that. Inevitably, they're going to be talking about other people. I just don't know a way I personally don't know a way that we're not going to come up with that at some time. But
Hmm.
yeah, how about you? What would you do in that? Have you seen that?
I don't know that I've ever seen it either. I think that naturally, almost everyone I've worked with becomes curious about other people when they start talking about strengths. I think at the beginning, it's easier to learn about yourself. You're more curious about yourself. But anytime I end up in a coaching situation or facilitation, people are always like jumping to look at other people's. They're just,
Oh yeah.
if I am always trying to bury a team grid if we're going to do it until we're doing it, because it will be the first thing people grab is
Of
like,
course.
okay, well,
Yeah.
why is this person this way?
Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, this explains so much.
Wow.
So I agree with you. I think that people are really team curious, but I could see people using, of course, I think there's team curiosity. I could see people like really focusing on themselves and not bringing it to the team, because it does take intentionality to do that. I will sit with folks who I'm coaching where we've coached their whole team, and they'll say, well, I have to go to this meeting with these two people and I'm feeling a little anxious because we have to talk about this hard thing. And I'll be the one to be like, well, let's look at their strengths. And they're sort of like, "Mer?" Like, oh
Go
yeah, yeah,
on.
like we have some insight. Like, we don't know exactly how they're going to show up, but we can figure out what's important to them, how they might approach this. So let's use it. And I think that people are always like eager and excited to do that, but it's not always the first thing they think of.
Right. Right.
And
Very.
and
Yeah.
that goes back to your point. Like, if you're a team and you're struggling and you've done Clifton Strengths, do you have a coach you're working with who can challenge your people to keep using the tool? Because
Yeah.
I think a lot of this, like, if we think about the core question we're addressing today, is like, if we've done Clifton Strengths and it's great, but my team is still struggling, why? Well, did you just set it and forget it? You did it and you talked about it, you had a great time, and now it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yep. Done. Don't not worried about it. Not seeing it. Right. And having nothing breaks our heart more than you open your desk drawer and, oh, I remember doing that. That was
The
Right.
thing that
Yep.
drives me crazy is, I go to all these networking events and I run into people and I tell them what I do. And so then people inevitably, I'm in Nebraska, so we got a lot of people have taken this assessment. They'll say, oh
Yeah.
my God, I did Clifton Strengths. And then I always feel obligated to ask what their top 5 are. And the thing that breaks my heart is they'll say, oh, I don't remember. Hold on. Let me get my cell phone out and check my email. I'm sure I've got it in here somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
what a waste. I tell people sometimes, which is probably inappropriate, but I say, what a waste. What a
What a
waste.
waste.
What a waste
Yeah.
of time and money. You did all of this and now you don't even remember what they are. And that's why I'm
Yeah.
telling people, like, put them in front of you so you see them. But here's the thing. If you invest in a coach, man, people put their time where their money is. So if you want to invest in this and you want to keep sure it doesn't die,
Yeah.
pay a coach who's going to push you to
Yeah.
keep doing it, because if they're on your docket, they're going to say, okay, remember this, pull that back out. They're going to get your people to keep going back to it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, then it is easy. If you don't have an internal person who's pushing it, it is easy to set it and forget it. And so it could be a thing you did once and then everyone just forgot.
Absolutely. So good. So very good. I brought this up earlier in this episode, and I'm curious from your point of view. I don't want to call it a bad seed per se, but the one person in a group, right? The one that's the naysayer, the one that crosses their arms in the group and is like, I took it because I was told I had to, and now I'm gonna contribute nothing, or even worse, the actively disengaged, according to Gallup, right? I'm going to poke holes in this the whole time we're sitting here, or attempt to. So when you get that, how often are you using a power of 2 or and trying to get them to invest from a, hey, let's get together and really dive into this? What's your call to action for the naysayer?
I mean, I feel like I'm really lucky that I haven't had any like aggressive naysayers. I have not, especially in a one-on-one. And I don't really have people poking holes in it. And this is probably not the right approach. My strengths are showing right now. What I'm about to say, you're going to
Excellent.
see my strengths.
Excellent.
Because a lot of times people want to push back on like the data or the information, like they're that harder stuff. And I'm
Hmm.
always like, oh, have you seen my strengths? I'm not a data person, so I'm going to just tell you like how I feel about it. And it might not be right. You can go look it up online, So I'm always like, here I am in my full nakedness of what I am, which means I
Yeah.
am here to woo you and to build a relationship with you. And if there's any of this like sciencey stuff I'm saying you don't agree with, then like, please go to the internet and have your conversation. You can chat with
Right.
Chat GPT about that. And
Right.
so I don't know if that like disarms people where they're like, this girl's gonna be no good to me. She will not be entering into a debate. So I don't have a lot of that, fortunately. But I think it's just like most of the time, if I sit down one on one with someone and I can tell they're not that bought in, when I do an introductory strengths work or strengths coaching session, I have this little formula I do where I say, tell me about your career. I want to know from the beginning to today, what are the jobs you've had? What was your career trajectory? And
Mm,
this disarms people.
great.
Even the hardest of hard people, when they get to start telling me about their story and how their Uncle Timmy had a lawn business and they started working for him when they were 16, as they're going through their story, I can see them softening up to me, right? And then I say, okay, let's talk about your top 10. I'm going to tell you what I know about the strength, but you tell me how it shows up for you. And then as they do that, I start making connections. Oh, I can hear how your harmony and your discipline were showing up there. Do you see that? They'll be like, oh, yeah, right? And so then once we do that, there is not an objection in sight. All I have done is mirrored back to you who you say you are.
Right. Right. Hard to argue if I've
Hard
told
to
you who I
argue.
am.
Hard to
Yeah.
argue.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's called
smart.
wooing 101, people. Just mirror back to them who they are.
And if you don't have woo, hit them with data. How long were you at that? Right. Give me the percentage of time you felt, you were at that job. What was the right? Or there's so many good coaching tools to get people to lighten up. But you know this about me. I coach frequently at a tea shop in Reno.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is because I get to buy tea for them. You want to see people lighten up. It's like, go grab a tea. And then they're standing there and they're waiting to pay. And they know me really well at the tea shop. They're like, no, you're here with Bill. Sorry, we can't take your money. Man, bang. Wow, somebody bought me a tea and now we're just going to chat. This is great and disarming, right? Instantly. And which of your strengths feels good about me buying you a tea? Let's talk about it. Or tell me about, how you felt this assessment went. How was it? What was the good parts? And as we're sitting there sipping and laughing and having fun, and now that it's getting nice out and we're doing this in the early summer, we're sitting outside in the shade and relaxing. There is, if I can get them out of their work environment, I think that's a good step off to get moving. If you're the one that's battling, I've had people as co-coaching with Renee, I've had people be like, I want her to do it. Right.
Right.
I like the way she's doing it. And the answer is good. So she can do it. Let's, if you resonate with that style of coaching a little bit, then you should, we're equipped to give you that.
So I want to get to our poll for today. So I posted on the LinkedIn. If you're a listener here, you should follow Strengths on Fire on LinkedIn and or follow Sarah Collins or Bill Dippel, William Dippel. Which are you? Are you a Bill or a William on the LinkedIn?
Wow. Just put, I believe it is Bill. So,
okay.
But
okay. I'm just trying to get it right for the folks out there.
No,
Anyways, we will be posting weekly polls so your voice can be heard on the pod. So the poll for this episode was, what's the biggest reason teams don't get the full benefit from strengths? And we have no real strengths convos coming in at 36%. No team development at 64%, and then big goose eggs under too focused on weaknesses or misunderstanding strengths. So the running leader there is no team development. Thoughts?
No team development is why we struggle. So as a coach, what are we doing? If we're not there running team development, and by the way, as part of our pre-assessment that we do with management and employees, depending on the size and the structure of how we've done this, we ask in an advance document, have you done this sort of work before, and did management stick with it? So we have an idea walking in, right, of what the engagement looks like. But the true magic, and I think for people to pull the curtain back a little bit on that assessment, what we're doing with it is we're creating a heat map of, does management think that they're doing everything right? Or what does management feel they're doing wrong? Is it the consistency of employee acknowledgement? Is it the framework of they have enough tools to do what they're doing? Where do they feel they're accelerated, and where do they feel they might be a little lacking? And then we take that heat map and we compare it to the employee heat map. And that gives us a wonderful working playbook on if they align, if the heat map for those align and they feel like that the faults might be in the same spot, we've got a wonderful leaping off point to know we're going to start addressing this right away. Yeah. But an even more fruitful leaping off point for us is when they don't align, when management feels, yep, our employees are 100% engaged. They've got everything they need. And that's the hot spot in the heat map for the employees. Now we know not only do we have to address that, but we clearly need some work in the communication realm around being open with each other and looking at management styles as to why you're not getting that feedback directly.
Yeah. I think the other thing is, first of all, kudos to you for that. That sounds like really incredible assessment and information for you and for the client to have a great collection tool. I think a lot of it for the no team development just comes down to people think, oh, we got to just fill in space at this retreat. We've got to fill in space at this meeting, or we heard this thing was cool. So they just do a one-time workshop or, maybe a two-parter workshop, and they think that that's going to get it. And the truth is, like I always tell people, like, you get what you pay for. You can have me come in for a one-time workshop. I will do that. I think it's my greatest marketing tool, and it's going to give you a taste of what is possible.
Yeah.
And usually people want to come back for more. But if you just get busy and you do the one-time workshop, guess I'm here to tell you it will not transform your team.
It will not.
It will
No,
not.
that
It
is
will not.
completely true. Yeah.
So exactly right. Like if you want to invest in strengths, you have to invest in it. You get out of it what you put into it, which is to really get it, you got to put the time in. You do.
Yeah.
And if
Look,
you are not, I think the people on the poll are right. You're not getting the team development. And I think the 36% that said not talking about strengths, I think that happens too. You have to actually be intentional about bringing it up when you if you are investing
I
in
get,
development for the team. You also have to be investing that at the top of a meeting. You're saying, "Hey, anyone have a strength shout out they want to give today?" Right? You have to be invested in putting your strengths in your email signatures. People have to see other people's strengths. You have to spend some real time and energy investing both time, money, and mental energy into it.
yep.
The more
Absolutely.
people invest in it, the more they see come out of it.
Yeah, yeah. Look, if you're an owner or a manager and you just want a one-day event and that's the last time you want to hear about strengths, don't bring Sarah or I in. Because what's going to happen is your employees for the next 3 weeks are going to be going, wow, that was amazing. We covered a lot of stuff. I can see where I can use this. I
Yeah.
really want to push this forward, right? Like you had mentioned early on, putting good coaches that want to do better for your people and are genuine about how they do it and have the tool set and the skill set to promote that is going to lead to a lot of business, right?
Yeah.
That's how we do it. And if you want your employees to be really tuned into this, just bring us in for a day and then
Mm-hmm.
hope you think you're not going to hear about it again. Wait as people are start talking about it and comparing. And like you, I hide the strengths grid. I actually envelope it in a folder called classified and
Oh,
put it in my
that's so
kit.
cute. I want to steal it.
And then I don't let anyone open the classified folder until I get three-quarters of the way through the event when I'm going to go over team dynamics and work. And I'm like, how many of you are interested in the classified folder? Let's open it up.
Okay, I'm
And
totally doing that. That's so fun.
it works so well. We're going to put a bunch of kits together today for a group we're working with next week. So, but yeah, we got a stunner. We got a rubber stamp from Staples that says confidential, do not open until told. But they'll put anything in a rubber stamp. Apparently, it looks really official. So, and then we stamp it onto the ledge
Oh
of
my
it.
God, that's so
It's fun.
cute.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
great.
I have a comment from LinkedIn I want to read and give a shout out to Sarah Wexelman. I actually had the
Ooh,
privilege of working at the same organization as Sarah. She's an HR professional and a certified Gallup Clifton Strengths coach, embedded. And she made a comment to our question here that was on LinkedIn. What's the biggest reason teams don't get the full benefit from strength? She had a really great response. It said, too often, I see team strength sessions placed in the one and done category and treated as a fun diversion for the annual retreat. I heard Mike McDonald, shout out Mike, refer to it once as dangerously recreational. There isn't continuity until your organization reaches a place where strengths are embedded in the culture in onboarding, manager training, goal setting, feedback, evaluation, etc. It's a journey.
ooh. I as a full-time lover of Mike McDonald. If he used the term dangerously recreational, I'm putting that out there at some point. That is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Look, I do one days. I do small multi days where we're putting three in. The pitch is always to put more time into it and to make sure people are getting better at it.
Exactly.
I understand the term dangerously recreational, and I love Mike McDonald for using it. We do want to make a bigger difference. We want to make sure we're making as big a difference as we can. And that's from both sides. I don't want the employees frustrated that we did it for a part of a day and then walked away. And from the coaches, how disheartened you and I will get if we're not still engaging and trying to make the next phase of it. So yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. And Sarah, thank you for responding to our LinkedIn poll. And for all of you listening, go to Strengths on Fire on LinkedIn. I'm like a little advertisement.
Look at
Uh,
you. Push it going today.
I want our audience engagement. I know there's people out there listening. I run into people out in the wild who say they listen. So I want to hear their voice. We only have so many guest slots open, but I want to hear your voice. So I hope that this episode was evidence to you that if you leave a comment, I will be reading your name and your comment out loud. Okay.
You're gonna be getting some notice from us, right? We want to make sure. So,
That's right. That's right. So, Bill, we usually do a dumpster fire fireworks segment, but in all transparency, to break the fourth wall, we recorded episode 1, season 2 about an hour ago.
Yeah.
So if people are curious about our fireworks and dumpster fires, they can just go back and listen to those, because we really don't have any new ones. We would just be sort of pretending if we came up with them today.
Well, but I also don't want to let our listeners and our future guests off the hook, right? We're going to skip it for us today because we just did it. But don't worry, if you're on, dumpster fire and firework is going to be part of your part of where we go.
Part of their homework. Yeah, we don't normally answer those questions.
We don't. So I love that we aimed it at each other. I'm not even certain we were aware we were going to do that today. So yeah, if you want to know our dumpster fire fireworks, back up to episode 1 and just go to the last half of it real quick. You'll hear where we're at. And there were some good insights in that one too. So I liked that. So
absolutely. Well, Bill, is there anything else that you would add before we move on and end our show for today?
I would say I don't know that we have a quorum on why team strengths coaching can be sometimes not effective. I think we've highlighted some ways it falls down, and we've highlighted some practical strategies on how to make it better. I think all of that fits pretty well, but I think it really comes down to incumbent good coaching. Don't be dangerously recreational, which I absolutely love. So, awesome.
Absolutely.
All
and
right.
if you have any burning questions about Clifton Strengths, you can send those to us in a message. You can leave them on our LinkedIn. We want to answer your questions this season on Strengths on Fire, the Great Strengths Debate.
Absolutely. Leave a comment on this as well. We're going to respond and put everybody on a spotlight to make it happen. So thank you guys so much for listening. We love that you're here. And as our arsonists and everybody else knows, we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Strengths on Fire. If today's conversation sparked something in you, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. We're here bringing you fresh insights to fuel your growth and ignite your potential. Remember, your strengths are powerful, so let's keep the fire burning.
And if you're looking to transform your organization through strengths-based strategies and coaching, reach out to Sarah Collins, founder of Collins Collective, or Bill Dippel, founder of Bill Dippel Strengths Coaching. Connect with Sarah at wearecollinsco.com, follow her on Instagram at SarahCoachCollins, or email her at sarah@wearecollinsco.com, SARAH. You can reach Bill at BillDippel.com, Bill, DIPPEL.com, or on Instagram at Bill Dippel Coach, or email him at bill@BillDippel.com.
Please note the opinions, views, and interpretations of Clifton Strengths expressed in this podcast are solely those of the hosts and the guests. They have not been approved, sanctioned, or endorsed by Gallup in any way.
Until next time, keep your strengths on fire and let's light up what's possible together. Bye, Bill.
Bye, Sarah.